everyone, Baker on the Dark Side. Here we are, we're gonna make the last and final Christmas cookie, dough anyway, that we need for my Christmas platters. This is the one that most people dread, so I saved it for last to give you some of my helpful hints. It's of course the dreaded cutout cookie. All right, so the cutout cookies. Here's my thing about cutout cookies. I've been using the same one for years. It is one that my grandmother gave me, one that I know works. It's not from the recipe box. It is an Austrian tea cake, and they actually call them tea cakes. And it always comes out really soft. I like it. If you like a crispy, buttery shortbread type cookie, this is not going to be the one for you. This is a very soft, delicate, kind of cake-like cookie. Okay, so I did some scraping already, and I already put in 1 cup of butter, and it's already been beaten, so I've got that out of the way. So now we're going to add 2 cups of granulated white sugar. Yep, lots of sugar. This is kind of a big recipe. I think it makes like 5 dozen. Depending on the size of your cookie cutters, obviously, if you're making giant ones, then no, it's going to be less than the 5 dozen. So we're whipping that in. One of the things that this recipe calls for is buttermilk, and I don't like to go to the store and buy a quart of buttermilk. It definitely, you know, I'm not going to use that probably for anything else except for pancakes, maybe, and for cookies. So my little secret to you is that you can make your own buttermilk. It's very simple. I'm just going to do a scrape, and then we're going to get into the buttermilk. Okay. 1 scrape and then the buttermilk. Okay. All right, I'm just gonna let that do its thing again. So what I've done is I needed 1 cup of buttermilk. So what I've done is I took 1 tablespoon of white vinegar and I put it in the bottom of the cup. Then I filled the cup up with the milk to 1 cup. So if you need 2 cups, you need 2 tablespoons, and so forth and so on. And then what it does is it sours the milk and it makes the buttermilk for you. So I have made this. It's been sitting. The longer it sits, the more sour it's going to get, the more it curdles. It's curdled a little bit here, but that's all you do to make buttermilk. Very simple. Okay, so here we go. We've got our butter and sugar all mixed together. So the next thing that's going to go in is I always put my my soda and my powder and my salt in the butter section, and only because I like to make sure that it gets incorporated in there. That's my little secret. That's what I do. So this had 2 tablespoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and then it had a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Throw it in. You know I use the light salt. You don't have to ask me twice. And then I'm going to start mixing this in. That's just me, that's what I do, but if you are not me, and you are not, you can also add it in with the flour. But that's what I did, I put it in there. Now this is 3 eggs at room temperature and 1 tablespoon of vanilla. You can cheap out if you want on this one, because once again, most people, you know, are going for the frosting. The frosting's got to have the flavor, or the glaze, or whatever. But I use frosting. I don't use glaze. I don't use royal icing. It's disgusting. It may look pretty, but it's gross. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel. All right, so we're gonna put 1 egg in at a time. You want to get these good and incorporated. scraping it up a little because, as you know, I have no patience. These are large eggs, by the way. So that's good. We're going to put in the next one. I'm sorry I don't have a glass bowl so you can see what's happening. Maybe that'll be in my next year's resolution, to get a glass bowl that you guys can see. All right, I'm whipping this baby out, putting the rest of the vanilla and the egg in there. I'm not gonna lie, I put a little smidge of the praline and cream extract in there because, oh, it smells so good. I am addicted to that pralines and cream extract, for sure, no doubt about it. All right, so now it's nice. Of course, we're going to scrape. And why are we going to scrape? I'm going to show you why. Because look at that. Did you see that? Look at these big chunks in there. You don't want that not incorporated in. So I got to get these big chunks out of here. Right? Nobody wants a big chunk of sugar. Well, maybe they do, but not in their cookie. All right. So there we go. I'm scraping this down. The bottom has also got a ton of stuff stuck to it. So don't let it fool you. It may have looked like it was nice and smooth, but it wasn't. Underneath it was a big chunky mess. All right. Can you tell I'm a little obsessed about the scraping? I really am. I had a teacher who was like literally like scrape maniac. And I think that it kind of like, you know, he wouldn't even use a scraper. He used his hands. I'm going to tell you right now, he did not believe in the scraper. Okay. He was European, and he just did not like scrapers. It was interesting. All right. We are looking smooth. All right, I'm loving that. I'm loving that. It's really good. All right, now for the fun. Now the fun begins. Okay. This is a very stiff dough, no matter which way you cut it, and it's very big. It's going to take up the capacity of my mixer, which is a 6-quart, just so you know. All right, I'm going to slowly put this milk in, the soured milk, which is now curdled. There's big curdly chunks in there, which is what it's supposed to look like. Don't freak out. It's supposed to be that way. It smells a little sour. Not freaking out. Okay, I've poured this milk in. That's gone. That's gone. I mean, cutting cookies are relatively easy as far as the actual dough itself. It's very easy, right? Not a lot of ingredients. But a lot of people stress about cutouts. I used to stress about them sometimes, but then I made, like I told you, I made like 1,000 of them one day in one row. If you find a recipe you like, then the rest is easy. The trick is finding a recipe that you like. Like I said, like the soft cakey type. Okay, now, it's all smooth. It's all scraped. When I have this much flour, I usually take the paddle off so that I can get it in there. Sometimes I might even take the bowl out, which I'm going to do right now because it's 5 cups. All right, so there it is, 5 cups of white flour. All right, we're gonna put this baby on. Now, I have a little splash guard. I recommend this whenever you're doing breads or things that are very close to your capacity. So I've got this little guard right here to stop the flour from going everywhere. And here we go. And we're gonna hear it. Like, remember like my other dough where it was really like you could hear it working? That's when you know like it's getting to that end and everything is coming together. You can hear it getting harder, right? Hear it working harder. The motor is working. So there it is. It's this nice kind of fluffy dough. Now, I need to scrape it. I can see that there's a lot here that needs to be scraped off. And this is a tough one to scrape. I'm not gonna lie, it's tough. Tough to scrape. But you want to make sure, especially with this kind of dough, that everything's incorporated. I am going to use my hands. I don't normally, but this is a really tough dough, and this needs a little extra oomph. So I'm gonna, oh man, it is stiff. I'm not gonna lie. Okay. This completely incorporated now. Okay. Like I said, this is a very kind of a cakey dough. So as you can see, it's quite smooth. This is definitely not ready for rolling at the moment. There you go. Use your fingers, get it out. There you go. It's all done. It smells really good. Okay. All right, so this dough has to chill a little bit. It depends on, you know, how cold it is in your refrigerator, but it does need to chill just a little bit. I don't chill it a lot, but I do chill it a little bit because it does need to kind of form a little bit. It got a little warm while I was beating up the butter and everything. So we want to make sure that it's the right consistency. I'm not going to chill it a lot, but I am going to chill it a little bit. So I'll be back after it's chilled. Hi everyone. Okay, baker on the dark side. I came back, chilled the dough about 20 minutes. I put it out, I put half of it out, I put the rest back in the fridge. So we're rolling. So you just want to try to roll. You can roll as slow as you want. I mean, the important thing here is that you want to make sure that you are even all the way through. Now I'd like to say there's a trick to this. Really isn't. You just kind of got to eyeball it. I like my cookies a little thicker. Some people like them thin. This recipe does rise pretty high in the oven. So I'm just gonna, I only rolled half. You don't want to roll your dough too much. You don't want to roll it more than 3 times if possible, okay? So hopefully you can see this now. Let me lower this down a little bit. It's not important that you see my face as much as you see this dough. Okay, so now, when you have cookie dough, cookie cutters, and you're cutting cookies, you want to make sure you flour them. That's what keeps them from sticking. But you also want to pick round ones together. So like round or short together. And if you have ones that are long, this is my seahorse and this is my mermaid tail. Yes, I do use these. These are kind of longer. Can you see that? It's hard to tell. They're long. So you want to keep those together. But the most important thing is sometimes you have to interact them. But when you bake them, you want the ones that you're baking on that sheet to be the same size. You don't want to cook this with this. They're not going to cook the same. Okay? That's the biggest important thing. You can cut different sizes, and I will tell you that you want to use as much space as you can so you don't roll it too much, okay? Like I said, once you get to the 3rd roll, you shouldn't roll anymore because then it's just tough. It gets tough. You got too much flour in there. The more flour you have, the tougher the cookie's gonna be. The more you roll it, the tougher the cookie's gonna be. All right, so I'm starting with my rounds. And you're gonna go right to the edge of your dough. You're gonna press down, and then you're just gonna push it out lightly. This is a very soft dough. I have to flour this every time. And then I'm gonna put it on the cookie sheets. Now, as I told you, I cut all mine out and I put them on cookie sheets, okay? I don't chill the dough anymore as a whole. I chill the cookies that are cut out, so they get the right coldness. So you do that and you keep going along. Now, so you want to, like I said, use as much space as possible. You want to get right up to the last cookie that you cut. And you want to just keep getting those as close as you can, because you don't want to roll the dough again. You just don't want to roll it as much as possible. So I decided that, I usually do like a dozen of each shape. And I can see that it's sticking on me. So I might not have floured this enough. It's very important that you put a lot of flour on this, on the bottom. It's really important. This is a very soft dough. I can't say that enough. So I made a mistake. I didn't put enough flour in the middle. I put more flour on the ends apparently, but not in the middle. But not a big deal. I mean, so you're gonna roll this again. The one thing I do like about this cookie dough is that it is so soft that it takes a lot for it to get tough. I can sometimes get it to the 4th roll without it being tough. So as I said, I am trying to do a dozen of each shape. That's my plan. I'm dunking this cookie cutter in flour every time so that I can get it out without it sticking. It's okay. You don't want it to stick. If it does stick, you're gonna re-roll it. That's just the way it is. And so this is my dozen snowflakes that I just did. So I have one little part there that's stuck. All right. So what I'll do is I will cover this layer that I just cut with parchment paper or wax paper. You can use wax paper in this case because you're putting it in the freezer. And so then I will do my next dozen of like my mittens. So these are my mittens. These are also kind of the same size. So you're gonna do that. If if that's what you do, if you only have enough, space for one tray, then you're gonna have to layer them with parchment paper, and then you can just pull the parchment paper and move it over and then move the cookies and then bake them. But that's how I chill it. I usually just put them in the freezer overnight until I'm ready to bake them. And I will be ready to bake them sometime later this week. But that's what I do. I just cut them all, get that out of the way, and then all I have to worry about is taking them off and baking them. If you can put them on parchment paper, then you can bake them on this parchment paper. You don't have to move the cookies at all. So if you can, get the parchment paper. You can get it at the dollar store. You can get it at Christmas tree shops. And so then when you do that, you just put them in, I put a dozen here so they could bake together. They don't usually spread because they're cutouts. So you can, put in what you think is going to be the right spacing on that. Hopefully that gave you some helpful hints on the cutout cookies. And, try a tea cake. It's really fun. It's a nice cookie. I got flour on my hands. Well, let me shut it off. Uh-oh, I can't shut it off. Oh my, okay. Gotta wash my hands first. But, hey, subscribe if you want to see me mess up more. Bye-bye. Nope, it's not gonna shut off. No, it doesn't want me to leave. All right, so there it is. I rolled the candy canes. I just want you to see the thickness. Okay, see that? So they do puff up a lot, but that's a good thickness right there. If you're always wondering, how thick should I roll these? That's usually a pretty good thickness right there. And I don't worry about like too much flour being on it. I mean, you can, before you bake them, just dust them off with a little brush. That's all you gotta do. And then you won't have that flour on there anymore. So I don't worry about that. You can do the bottom too. It's always better to use a bunch of flour and make sure they come out without sticking. That's my theory. I'm sticking to it. Bake around the dark side.